So let's just say a quick hello to everyone since you haven't really seen my face in a month because we're doing this class pretty asynchronously and remotely because I think that's kind of the best way. I don't know that a public speaking class is one in which we really need to be hosting 2 meetings every week and having these kinds of meetings. But as we're getting into what is now our first major speech assignment, as well as our writing assignment, and I want to keep our eyes and attention towards that writing assignment and engaging in acts of actually analyzing examples of public speaking, I think it's a good time to host a few meetings for us to be able to participate in, for you to be able to ask me questions, as well as for me to be able to share a little bit more information in a more organic way for those of you who respond better to hearing or listening to some of the instructions and some of the explanations rather than reading and figuring some of those things out, which is what this tends to be a little bit more heavily. So the way that I'm going to go through this is we're going to talk first about the Patriot Act analysis assignment. Then I'm going to talk about the informative speech and the way in which it is related to our TikTok series. And then I'm going to leave time at the end for anyone to ask questions if you have them. If you find that you have to leave early, you can go ahead and pop your question into the chat box, and I will check that and try to answer those questions on the recording and get it posted up onto the class YouTube page for you to be able to see those answers if you end up having to leave early. So to get started with this Patriot Act analysis assignment, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So for me, one of the things that I have found is a lot of public speaking classes and a lot of people tend to turn towards things like TED Talks as exemplary examples of public speaking and the way in which people get invited to speak to large audiences. But I find that TED Talks tend to be a little bit more idiosyncratic rather than systematic. So they are paying closer attention to the individual who's doing the speaking and that type of model rather than the needs and of an audience more broadly, as well as we transition into technology, how we start incorporating visual aids, jokes, and technology into our public speaking. And so I think that Hasan Minhaj does an excellent job of that with the show Patriot Act, in which he does these 25-minute bits on different current events or current issues that are facing both the United States audience as well as occasionally broader international audiences. So the way in which I break this down is in the content section under Module 5 of the Patriot Act analysis. I have 4 major sections of analysis that we're going to look at, and we'll watch an episode. So hopefully everyone has watched the episode because I'm not just going to give you the answers to the worksheets, but I'm going to be here to kind of guide you through how you figure out those answers and what it is we're actually looking at. And we're going to unpack a different aspect of that. These worksheets are supposed to be hopefully very helpful references for you when you go in and start actually writing the essay itself, because the things that I'm asking you to identify in the worksheet are the same things that I'm asking you to identify in the final written essay in the kinds of details with examples and references from the show. The most important thing that I want to say about that final writing assignment, which has not been clear to my students in the past, is the only references you should have in your writing of the final essay is the episode itself and any of these class meetings, discussions, or the textbook. You should not be doing external research in order to complete this writing assignment. Doing so actually violates the standards of it and puts you at a much higher risk of getting in trouble for plagiarism because you're using someone else's analysis of the show rather than doing your own analysis. So please don't make that mistake. and things should be good. It's relatively simple, straightforward, and systematic. So to get us started, we're looking at audience analysis and the way in which we take considerations of our audience. By now, all of you who are following along in the book, as well as doing the quizzes, you should have read and completed your quiz for Chapter 6, in which we talk about analyzing audiences and looking at attitudes, values, and beliefs. So the biggest aspect of that for me, when I think about how this relates to public speaking, is in fact, once you have chosen a topic for your speech, you have to look, rather than at doing the research for the topic, at what kinds of audiences you are attempting to engage, inform, and persuade. Who are the people that you're talking to, and how does what you say, the way you say it, and the kinds of evidence that you use change based on the different audiences that you are engaging with? And I think that is something that becomes very clear in Patriot Act and the way in which you find some of those things is what are the references that he is making, whether they be pop culture, whether they be political, whether they be culture, generally cultural, intercultural, cross-cultural, international, right? The references that he's making, the people that he name drops, the types of people that he is interviewing tell you a lot about what kind of audience he is speaking to, both in their demographic makeup as well as what their attitudes are going to be. And for those of us who may not have read the chapter, the way in which we break down the psychology, right? Because we have two major areas that we focus on: the demographics, right? The who, the what, the specific material details of a people, and then the psychological aspects, which looks at the attitudes, how those attitudes build into values, and how those values get expressed as beliefs. So our attitudes are those general evaluations of people, ideas, objects, and events. Are we pro something? Are we anti something at our most fundamental level? Our beliefs are the way in which we express those ideas as perceptions of reality. So how do you feel about what is true or what is real? What do you believe in? And then, right, it moves into something more solidified, which becomes our values, our most enduring judgments about what is good in life, and how we feel strongly a desire to strive for those values, right? So if spirituality is something that is important to you, or your religious connections, your values organize around striving towards being the best Christian, the best Muslim, the best Jewish person that you possibly can. Those are three, not limited, obviously, but the three major examples when you think religiously. So if we're breaking this down into the episode, and this is where I'm going to push some of you all to at least mute your mics a little bit if you can help me out with this and talking. So what do we think of as the demographic for a show like Patriot Act?
Like, what do you mean? Like, can you rephrase that?
Yeah. So here, do you see yourself as Hasan Minhaj's ideal audience that he's attempting to speak to or get through to in his show?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So why? What makes you think that?
Yeah, like the way he talks, the way he expresses himself and uses words, like he's free to be himself. He can cuss sometimes, or like you know how we're being an adult, we but like voice proper language as kids. We like to be more free with ourselves. So he's looking towards a younger audience, and the way he's open and able to like, express himself. Yeah. So yeah, I think it shows that the way he's talking, it shows like I'm talking this particular group of people.
Absolutely. So, when we think about demographics of our audience, one of the first things that we think about is the age group and what is made possible and what gets foreclosed by trying to reach a younger audience versus an older audience. What are you allowed to say? How are you allowed to speak based on their age? What are some other demographic components you have to think about for your audiences?
I mean, but besides age,
Yeah, besides age.
I guess what they're interested in. I guess like something that'll grab their attention, like something's going on right now. I'm guessing.
So, a lot of what, so the way in which we figure out someone's interests and the way in which we pick our examples and the way in which we make pop cultural references is all based on what the demographic is. So, when you're looking at a person and trying to figure out what they might like, right? Or what they might relate to, you think about their age. What else do you think about?
Along the lines of age, nationality, their culture, anything that really identifies them or a specific group of people, or if you're talking about broad people in general, in this case, maybe it's the whole country, the Americans that he's trying to reach to of voting age. Maybe he would also like to target to me, he would also get the interest of older people because he's not only talking about the left or just the left or just the right. He's talking about both sides. So to me, it seems more informative for pretty much all across the board for me.
Yeah. So for Hassan Minaj, we have a primarily younger, although he makes some connection to older audiences, but a primarily younger, but of voting age demographic. Primarily Americans, because we're talking about the American voting system. What about gender?
Yeah, gender does tie into that because sometimes you can be saying stuff that are appropriate for a male and but not appropriate for a female or vice versa.
Yeah. Do you think that Hassan Minaj is talking to a specific gender demographic or a more mixed one?
It's mixed. He's not referring to anything that's gender specific.
Good. Right. So when it comes to issues of gender, he tries not to make particularly specific claims. Although he sometimes, right, this is one that's fun. He sometimes has episodes where his examples seem or feel a little bit more gender specific. He has an entire episode where he talks about the brand Supreme and the way in which the logic around that economy unfolds, which tends to be something of interest predominantly to men. So a lot of his references target men. The people he talks to are people that guys are going to know, so on and so forth. What about when we think about technology? Because technology and technological um, knowledge and ability and interest tends to be important. Do we think that technology plays a role in his demographic?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Say that for me one more time.
Honestly, I don't remember.
Okay. Anyone else have a guess?
I think the graphics that he uses may appeal more to younger audiences and the platforms that he puts his speeches on also.
Yeah. So he uses a lot of technology in the show. He has probably some of the most developed, I wouldn't say like advanced, although sometimes advanced, but current and striking visual imagery, graphics, clips, a lot of those things, right, move towards people who like technology and those nice transitions. So maybe it's not about, right, he's obviously not speaking to a tech, computer science, Silicon Valley audience, right? But he is speaking to an audience that respects and has respect for clean technological use. I think that would be good. Do you think he's speaking to Democrats or Republicans or both?
I think you're speaking a little bit about both.
Okay. What makes you say that?
Because he was first speaking about Republicans and how about Donald Trump, and he was also speaking about Joe Biden as well. So he was kind of going back and forth between them. It's sort of equal.
Okay.
I think it was more towards the Democratic side. Like he was speaking to Democrats because he was really ragging on Trump a lot in that video. And he was talking about Biden, but it was more like the Democratic stance that they don't really like Biden, but they'll vote for him anyway because they rather him than Trump. So I think it was leaning more towards the Democratic side.
Good. Yes. So that's one of the things that's particularly interesting to me is as you kind of narrow down who it is that he might be attempting to persuade, if there's a persuasive message. I think he is attempting to entertain moderate Republicans, Democrats more broadly, but as you get more into it, he's speaking to Democrats. He's speaking to Democrats who might be apathetic about voting, who might be because they're frustrated with the democratic system, right? The part that he speaks the most about, right? We think about our examples. He talks about how the Democratic Party is particularly split, and they're the one in fracture and rupture. He interviews AOC, not a Tea Party Republican, or a fringe Republican, but someone who's kind of considered a fringe Democrat, or a part of a new wave of the Democratic Party. Do we think that the people he is attempting to persuade or speak to are definitely voting, definitely not voting, somewhere in the middle? What do we think is happening there?
Somewhere in the middle, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Right. I think right the way that this message kind of works is and as we break it down, he's speaking to an audience that's at risk of not voting in November. So and attempting to make a plea and an appeal for both them to have hope in the system, but also, right, to provide them kind of a roadmap of how the system needs to be changed and altered without being anti-democracy, for them to begin to see results and a democratic political system that they might strive for and that they want to change. So as one of the reasons, and so I've spent 10 or 15 minutes kind of breaking down the demographic of our audience, because as we start to ask those questions, it moves you closer to figuring out if this is a persuasive message or not, and then who it is he's actually trying to persuade, even if his general audience is a little bit more broad. And you can unpack why he's making the choices he's making, about what to attack in the political system, what to uphold, what to praise, and what to criticize, in order to make that message more effective, because he's really speaking to a group of democratically inclined individuals who are at risk of not voting because they're apathetic towards a Trump-Biden competition in November, and they're apathetic towards the option that they feel stuck with. So if you feel stuck, here is what is really broken, and here's how that needs to change. Now, when you think about that and you think about the psychology of your audience, right? You know who you're talking to. What do you understand about their psychology? So, what are some attitudes that you think that this audience might have? If we agree that you all are potentially a part of this target audience, what are things you like right now?
Honestly, not politics.
Not politics, okay? So you're anti-politics or apathetic towards the political?
Yeah, anti-politic for now.
Yeah, okay. What else, generally? What do you like?
Just me. Okay. You mean like anything? Like we
Yeah,
like to do?
anything. What do you like?
I like to draw, I guess.
So that gets us very specific. Now, if you think about your age group, your friend group, your broader community, what are things that people that you align with support, believe in, like, dislike?
Christianity.
Okay. Does Hassan Minaj's audience believe Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Okay. Why would you say that?
Um, I guess technically, because Black Lives Matter is technically not just black people, just colored people in general. And the way he talks about himself being, the way he talks about his own race, and then he's saying, what did he? Sorry, I forgot what he said, but hold on, come back to me. I forgot.
Okay. So the reason I picked this one out is because this is how you're going to. So when you think about picking attitudes, right, and identifying attitudes in the episode about his audience, he speaks about Black Lives Matter early in the episode. He speaks about the coronavirus. He speaks about the political system. He speaks about Trump. He speaks about Biden. He speaks about a bunch of things. So the task on you is to figure out when he's speaking about those, do you think his audience is pro those things, anti those things, at a very general, basic level? When we're thinking about the attitudes, at a very general, basic level, how do they feel about the people, about the ideas, about the objects, about the events that Hasan Minhaj is referencing? To get to that very basic level. So they might be anti-authority or against being told what to do or who to vote for. Because he opens the episode being like, I'm not telling you who to vote for. We're going to talk about the political system. Because he's going to cut his audience off from the beginning if he makes it about who to vote for. But instead, he sidesteps that to intrigue them in. That's one example of an attitude that you could include. There are more. What about beliefs? Do we have any examples of beliefs that you might have identified in the episode?
I think that he believes that we should have an effective voting system in America.
So I like that. I think that gets us very close, right? Which is he believes, or his audience believes, that our political system and our voting system should be representative of the voices, right? Or represent the most number of voices, or give people the most say, right? So if the conclusion is we do, what is it called? Rank voting. That rank voting is the answer because if your first choice loses, you still get to pick your second choice instead of getting stuck with your fifth choice, right? Until you reach a majority. What do you think, or how do you think that Hasan's audience believes about how divided our country is?
He was talking about he thinks we're very divided because he refers to back how the politicians are saying we have been this divided since the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed a graph about it as well.
Yeah. So I'm not picking on you because I think you and both Jessica say this. So one of the interesting things that the chapter tells you from the beginning is that when we're analyzing public speaking, we have a tendency to analyze what is getting said as the beliefs of the speaker, because we think about things as speaker oriented. And one of the reasons that I put audience analysis first is because when we're speaking, especially when we're speaking to persuade, we are in fact, as speakers, not speaking as ourselves in a weird way. We're speaking as this kind of persona in which we are speaking and using the beliefs of our audiences in order to make an argument. So when we say that Hasan Minhaj believes that our country is extremely divided, what he is actually doing is presenting what he sees as a belief of the audience, which is that we are the most divided we've been since perhaps the Civil War. and something that gets echoed and shown to us by news media, right? The evidence in the episode of where this belief would come from would be those clips of the news media and that segment of the episode. So when you think about beliefs, think about it from that perspective. So while your default might be, Hassan believes this, ask yourself the question, do you think this is what he believes? Or do you think this is what he thinks his audience believes? Does that make sense? Do I need to say that again?
Makes sense.
Okay. Cool. Well, hopefully, if it doesn't, we'll be able to go back and reference it. So the last part of this, so we can move kind of quickly and talk about the informative speech a little bit, for unpacking this worksheet, is thinking about audience values. So if we go from these general evaluations of our ideas, people, objects, events, right? This general pro, against at its most fundamental level, into the beliefs, right? The way in which those attitudes build perceptions about reality, or our feelings about what is true or real. As those things solidify over time, we build values, right? Our most enduring judgments about what's good, what's bad in life, the things that we should strongly strive to realize. What do you think that Hasan Minhaj's audience values?
Would say maybe integrity.
Integrity. Okay. What would make you say that?
It's just I would say that because of the voting system, how it's unfair, and he speaks of the the rank voting system,
Mhm.
and just how that would put more integrity into the system, and which is something that his audience would value in general, because he was talking about how it's not the way it is, not really the majority type system, and if we went to the rank one, it would be more in it would be more fair, I guess.
Yes. I love that. I think that also works for another example that I would pull for that, which is there's a moment in the episode where he talks about the way in which, in a two-party system, candidates speak in a polarized manner by doing things like calling each other terrorists. And he makes the statement, if you call people terrorists, you're justified in doing whatever it takes to beat them, right? As something that he sees as negative. So if we value integrity, both in our candidates, in our political system, and in our society more broadly, him making this claim makes total sense. Good. Yes. That was a long way to get to yes. What's another one? I'll let you think on that. The values ones tends to be a little bit harder. So as you're finishing up this worksheet and getting it submitted, whether you've written it out and you take a picture and submit it, or you're typing it up in Microsoft Word, both are fine. I just want to make sure that you identify at least 3 demographic components of Hasan Minhaj's audience, and try your best to give me 3 attitudes, 3 values, and 3 beliefs. so that I can get a sense of where we're at, and that will be good. I'll save some time here at the end for us to talk a little bit about the episode if you have questions or anything else generally. But I want to take about 5 or 10 minutes to just kind of talk about the informative speech assignment. So I talked about this in our very first meeting very briefly. You all will see there's module 3 went live on iCollege yesterday or last night for everyone to see. So the informative speech assignment is our precursor to this TikTok series that we're about to do. And so I want to make a couple of notes and comments here. One is, if you feel like we're moving quickly into this assignment, we definitely are. One of the approaches and strategies that I'm taking towards the online teaching is move quickly at the beginning of the semester to save you time for both your other classes and for the work that you all are inevitably going to push off if deadlines are just at the end of the semester for you at the end of the semester, because I have your attention better, longer, earlier in the semester. So if we can fill the first half of the semester, move quickly, your life becomes a little bit easier at the end of the semester, and you don't have to think about me as much. You just have to be like, okay, I have to make a weekly 1-minute video, essentially, right? So before we do that, and because the TikTok series is a bunch of 15-second to 60-second long videos in which you're attempting to capture and persuade an audience through something that you could build as a series. What becomes important to me is before you ever get there, because the way in which that type of assignment is designed, you have to speak with more authority and you can't explain as much in as much detail because of time constraints. You now need to prove to me in some ways that you know what's going on with your topic, right? So whatever it is, whether it's a political, social, economic, technological issue, whether it's educational, persuasive, advocacy-oriented, what's going on? If there's a controversy involved in the topic that you're choosing, I want you to be able to unpack both sides or all sides or multiple sides of that controversy for me without taking a stance, which is very hard and is going to be very hard for you all to do immediately. But before you can decide that a change needs to happen, that something needs to be adopted, that people need to believe something different, you have to understand the inner workings of what's happening right now and be able to explain that to me. It's what gives you authority as a speaker, and it's what shows me that you are doing research. So you're going to have to incorporate 5 sources into this speech. I would like you to attempt to use the GSU library database to pull a couple of academic articles into whatever your topic is. So, for example, if you have decided that you want your TikTok series to be based around Black Lives Matter, I want you to be able to look at a couple of academic articles about the structure of race relations in the United States, or more broadly, right? Whether it's you've read Frantz Fanon and you're very deep into some of this literature, or you're very deep into Black Marxist literature or something, or you just want to do something kind of more surface level, right? Dip your toes into what is it that academics are saying about this issue. Because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have been studying for decades, getting deep into archives, getting deep into surveys and studies and observation on so many of the issues that we find that we are facing and confronting today. So what are they saying? Take some time, get into that, figure it out for me. And once you've started doing that, now by the 20th, I think is what I've set the deadline as. I've changed it in the syllabus online. I think it was originally the 18th, but I want it to be the 20th, give you a few more days. I want an initial sketch, right? A first draft of an outline for what this informative speech topic is going to be, so I can see how you are mind mapping the topic. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be clean. I have given you an example of what a good, full sentence, beautiful, professional outline that you should create for any class that asks you for an outline ever. That'll be more final for you, but this one that's doesn't have to be beautiful, doesn't have to be perfect. But it does have to show me that you are doing the research and you are getting some work done and you have something to move forward on, because I don't want you to save everything for the last minute, because we've got about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I think, is what we're going to do to get this first initial speech that shows me you know what's going on your topic together. So that's what that's going to look like for you all. If you have questions, you want to stick around for questions, you have some confusion, now is our time. I'll give you all about 20 or so minutes to unpack that. If you feel good or you just want to email me later, you are more than welcome to do that as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
What was I gonna ask? Okay, so did you post a module for this week, like for the informative speech, like guidelines? And I know you said something about a template. Where can I find that?
So it's all in the content section of iCollege under module 3.
Okay.
Let me go make sure.
Because I didn't see, normally I get a notification when you post things. I didn't get one for this week.
Okay. Can somebody go pop into iCollege really quickly and make sure that it is visible on your end?
Oh, never mind.
No,
I
only
see it. I see it.
Where did you see it at? Because I only see module 1 and 2 and module 5.
Yeah, I see it. I see it now.
Okay. So who still can't see it? Sorry.
And you say it's module 3, right?
Correct.
No, I don't see a module 3.
Yeah, me either. I just see module 1, 2, and module 5.
Okay. Let me. All right. That is on me. I made them. I did not make them visible in all of my sections while I was working on them. Do me a favor. I'm checking that right now.
I see module 3.
Yeah, it's like I think I made it visible for one section, but not all of them. It's visible in all of our sections now. So go take a look and tell me if you can see it now.
You can see it now.
Perfect.
Now, thank you.
The other thing, and I'm going to make an announcement for this, is I think I want to give you, because what, today's the 16th? The 16th. I want to give you a little bit more than 10 days to do this. That's the other thing, which is I make my assignment deadlines a little bit earlier, sometimes to keep you all working, but I have a tendency to have an alternative deadline. So I'm probably going to actually make the informative speech due on the 30th of the month, not the 25th. And I'm going to make that announcement in iCollege as well, because we got time to get all of those things put together so that you actually have a full 2 weeks to work on this. So if you are in a group chat with a bunch of other people, this would be a wonderful way to also let them know. But you don't have to. You can make them come watch the video of us, because you were here for 45 minutes talking to me. And they weren't. Ha. All right, other questions? Yes, this speech is connected to the TikTok series. This is the speech for you to be showing me that you did your research on the background of that topic. So I want whatever issue that you would like to create a series attempting to persuade, educate, or change your audience's mind, perspective about, to be the same as what this informative speech is. They all build into each other.
Okay, so for clarification, the outline is due on the 20th and the actual speech is due on the 30th.
Correct.
Okay.
Hopefully that relieves some stress for anyone who is like, this is happening too fast.
So you said that the TikTok series is connected to this assignment?
Correct. This informative speech assignment is you showing me that you can inform me on the topic before you attempt to persuade an audience through an advocacy series. So my thinking around it and the way in which my rationale works is you are not going to be always, although you could, depending on what you're interested in, citing all of these people, right? Citing a bunch of scholarly sources or news sources or whatever throughout your series. So instead, what I want you to do is show me that you did that work through the informative speech and inform me about the topic. If you are still confused about the assignment itself, there is a TikTok creator that I think is a wonderful example, especially for anyone who is interested in building topics around issues of Black life or Black liberation. His name is The Conscious Lee, and I will put it in the chat box. I think I did. My little recorder is covering the chat box. Yeah, there we go. In there. So his name on TikTok is The Conscious Lee. He does a series of these about a bunch of different things. Some of his stuff is him just talking shit on people who are in his comments, but a bunch of his content will do things like identifying issues in the news and unpacking them for an audience and for his particular audience, as well as advocating for different groups and doing a lot more informative issues. Another one that I think she's much smaller, but it's kind of cool. Her name is Olivia Explains It All. She's created a TikTok channel entirely based around voter education for the Biden campaign and issues in Chicago specifically. I think these are a couple of people who tend to be kind of interesting to show you what works, what can work, what doesn't necessarily work, and ways to think about how you build a platform either around a single issue or around a very specific particular perspective. But we'll get to that also a little bit further down the road. All right, other questions? If we don't have other questions, this is a good stopping point for us. Feel free to email me if you have questions. Please remember, I don't check the iCollege messages, so email me directly with those questions, concerns, comments, ideas, whatever it is that you need from me. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end things for today. I'm going to stop our recording.